Hello guys, and welcome to our 25.3 strategy video. Don't forget, we break down each of the individual movements: the wall walk, the row, the power clean, the snatch, and the deadlift after this video of the head-to-head of Adele against Schwen, two of our process athletes. If you'd like to watch a strategy video of these two going head-to-head, watch now. Otherwise, skip ahead about 15 minutes and you're into the technical breakdown of each movement. But we will also be speaking about some of those techniques now. And we are rolling in 3, 2, 1, let's go. First things first, make sure you read the movement standards. Start facing your wall, turn around, drop down to the floor, and start your 5 wall walks. And I think the first thing to think about when we think about this workout is RX or scaled.
Yeah.
As always, 1 RX rep is always better than 1,000 even, scaled reps. So if you cannot do a wall walk safely to the full 10-inch line, then of course that's your decision made for you. The women here are moving really fast already. So they're already on the rows. They are pulling hard. So 5 wall walks for these two is like nothing. It's like just like a formality to get in. Of course, we know this next 20 reps are going to start to add up. But going back to those wall walks, we know that if you can't do it safely and it's a hazard to be upside down, you've never gone a chest to wall walk, then that's probably making your decision for you there. I think, we'll get back to walk in a sec, but I think the next thing that will determine if you can do this workout RX or not would be the deadlift load. You're moving for 25 reps. I think if you can deadlift 225 safely, generally speaking, you should be able to move the 135 safely or the 38 kg bar safely. And then same for the snatch as well. So of course, guys, if you're thinking about RX or scaled, just have a think about the wall walk and then the 3 barbells, obviously, after that. In terms of wall walk, Karan, what are you thinking about when you look at the wall walk?
I think the 2 things that come to mind with the wall walk is you need to know how many steps it takes you to get back from the 60 or 55-inch line or the 10-inch line, and then how many steps it takes you to get back to the front line. I know personally for myself, it takes me 5 steps back and 3 steps forward. So having that dialed in and nailed down and keeping it consistent across the 25 reps will go a long way. And the second thing that comes to mind is picking a cadence. I took 3 seconds for my first 2-3 rounds in between my reps. I counted down 3, 2, 1, and then went. And my last 2 rounds, I counted down 5 seconds, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, and then went. I know for the elite guys like yourself, you guys went unbroken or literally tap, tap, and go back. So it depends on, I guess, your strategy and where you are with wall walks and shoulder fatigue.
For sure. I think those are all great points as well. And like Karan was saying, figure out what your minimums and your maximums are. Kind of like the lunge portion when you're in 25.1, you got to figure out what can you do easily and what can you do at a push, right? So could you move to 4 steps back versus your 5, for example? And maybe you can be like, I don't know if it's worth it because I'm having to stretch. And when you're deep into a workout, you don't want to be having a stretch, right?
Exactly.
So definitely figure that out and figure out what feels like almost habitual to you. Like, what would you do if you were in a pain cave and doing that movement? I think the next thing to think about with the wall walk is you can see on the video that there's plenty of chalk on the floor. So just knowing where the hands kind of scoot and go on the floor is a really important thing. We speak about this later on in the video, but having the arms stacked and locked out makes it much easier for those that are strong in a wall walk to be able to move back. It's almost like a shuffle versus a big step, because as soon as you start pressing the arms, you just accumulate a little bit more fatigue. But again, when you look at people who are good at wall walking, their legs are actually quite relaxed. The more important thing is about stacking a solid stacked position. When we talk about stacking, we're talking about wrists, elbows, and shoulders as much as we can being in one line. And that stack will help on the shift back and help to mitigate the amount of fatigue that we build up. So Adele's already finished her 50 cal row here. We haven't even spoken about the row, but this first row, it should be a smooth effort. We're thinking what could you hold? Let's say Adele finishes his workout about 15 minutes. It should really be a row pace that she could hold for about 15 minutes. Right? Thinking that she still already has, we're not even 4 minutes into this workout and she still has another 10 plus minutes to go. There is no point in blowing yourself out early. But what we did see is that she moved super fast from that rower straight back in. So now Schwen has also come into a wall walk. So Adele's already built up a little bit of lead. She didn't have that lead going into the row. She did get that on the row. Of course, that small lead built up on the row can't really win you the workout in this first one, but it can definitely lose it for you. Right? You go too hot there. Okay, deadlifts. What are we thinking for deadlifts, Karan?
Deadlifts, I guess there's two ways to attack this. You can go cluster sets in terms of touch and go. For example, you could go with 5 sets of 5, or you could go 6, 6, 5, 4, 4, something like that. Or you could go quick singles if you feel like you do not want to control the eccentric. But keeping that in mind, you have to regain tension and energy at the bottom of each rep if you do go singles. That's the main thing. Try to stay over the bar, try not to step away from the bar. And that applies to the next two barbell movements as well.
Yeah, for sure. I think a lot of the time people get a bit carried away and they just kind of try to almost grip and rip the barbell on the deadlift, and like they just give up midline stability. Actually, it won't pay off in the long run because you got so many more hinging reps. You got 50 more hinging reps to complete as well. So yeah, still like think about good quality of movement when you're doing the deadlifts, although you can kind of throw it to the wind and just grip and rip it. Same with the cleans and the snatches, but it will pay off if you just have a little bit more tension through the midline whilst you're executing these. So you see Schwen has moved to singles variations here, whereas Adele stuck to 5s the whole way through. You can see already quite a big drop off in the wall walking cadence that Adele is executing there. She's still ahead, but in terms of the steps like you were talking about, she's still very solid with her step work here. Okay, we're into cleans. What are you thinking about with cleans now?
Cleans, I would predominantly stay with singles. I don't think anyone should be thinking about touch and go reps unless you're confident that the bar is very light for you and you want to open with maybe one set of touch and go reps. I'd say singles, quick singles, focus on a fast setup and execution, stay over the bar, don't step away from the bar, and then have a cadence in terms of like how many seconds are you going to rest in between each rep? Are you going to follow the bar down? Are you going to take 2 seconds, 4 seconds between reps? And try to pick something that you know you can hold, not just for the cleans, but you also think about the snatches coming up.
Yeah, I mean, Adele's doing a really good job here of like getting one hand on the bar as it's kind of still bouncing. The other hand comes on, it's just straight pull off the floor.
Yeah.
Again, like she's trying to receive the bar nice and high. We're trying to not get fatigued and like bend the knees a bit too much. Schwen going for a muscle clean here. So muscle clean is definitely something you can do. Now she's going to power cleans, but definitely something you can do. But again, wouldn't recommend it. It's just a bit more work, whereas a soft, a bit of subtle knee bend just helps you get under that bar and keeps you more upright, a bit easier to breathe. Again, like you said, it's about like finding a cadence with this. Naturally, you might slow a little bit throughout the 25, but it needs to be like fairly relentless.
Yeah.
Now, when I say relentless, that's relative to the person doing it. So if you're Schwen and Adele, you've got like no more than kind of 2 to 3 seconds between reps. For other people, that might be 5, 6, 7, 8 seconds between reps. So that will feel relentless for you. But the idea is to start at a pace that you think you can pretty much maintain throughout the full 25. What we don't want to do is do something like a touch and go set, move to singles, and then be completely obliterated hands on knees, and we can't execute singles even at a good pace anymore.
Agreed.
So again, you went through the workout at the beginning. There's so much going on in this workout. So it is so important that we're still fast in the transitions. You're moving 5 feet back and forth, sometimes 15 feet between the rower and the wall. You have to be quick, right? So you're going to see the top people actually running between. But also even the people who maybe are just trying to finish this workout should still be running on the last wall walk into the last row, for example, right? So we need to really think about those things.
Yeah, and talking about like saving precious seconds, something with the wall walk is movement standards. A costly no rep on a wall walk, or your no rep on a wall walk will be costly. So just make sure before the hands leave that front line, both legs are on the wall. You go back, tap the back line, and make sure both hands reach the front line before your legs come off the wall. Making sure of these standards will definitely save you from getting no rep and save you precious seconds.
Yeah, we talk about kind of like cost of a no rep.
Yeah.
Like a cost of a no rep on something like a deadlift. If a deadlift is light for you, isn't too bad because you can execute the reps so fast. But in a wall walk, you got to get back to the floor. You got to get all the way up to the wall and come all the way back down. It's just costly in terms of time and in terms of energy. Now, one thing we did see with James Sprague in the live announcement is that he actually went up on his last or second last wall before the wall walk, even before the row. He came halfway down and the communication with the judge was no rep. So he went back, touched the line, then came back down. But very good awareness from him, even still deep into a workout, to be able to still kind of hear that, understand what he needs to do and go back to the wall and execute. But at the same time, it's like, you and your judge need to know what's happening. So I think the cues that we were using as judges here it was always a yes, 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 and then 1. Yes, 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 2. And the first yes is like, are you on the floor? The next yes is, are your hands still on the line, both feet on the wall? And the last yes is, are both hands to the 10-inch line? And then the number is counted once the hands get back to
Yeah.
the first 55 or 60-inch line.
Correct.
Okay, so two very different techniques here again. Adele is going for a no contact power snatch and doing touch and go sets of 5. So a little dip under at the end. Schwen is going with a full contact power snatch and going singles the whole way. Now, of course, with the ladies using this bar, it's a 5 kg plate or a 10-pound plate for a lot of them, which we know is always going to be prone to bouncing more.
Yeah.
Versus, you know, even the men using a 25-pound or a 10 kg plate, again, they're thinner, a bit more flexible. They are going to move about the room. So something to think about there when you're thinking about touch and go versus singles. But Adele did a pretty good job again of staying at the bar and being like relentless with her cadence of movement there.
Yeah. I think with the power snatches or the snatches, if you're a barbell guy or girl and the bar is light for you, touch and go reps here is an option. You could go 5 sets of 5, or you could open or finish with sets of 4 or 5 and sneak in singles in the middle. For myself, you know, if you're not much of a barbell guy, singles all the way, but trying to keep that cadence same as a clean.
You say you're not a barbell guy?
I'm definitely not a barbell guy. Sorry. You can see Schwen, her cadence on the snatches has slowed down compared to her cadence on the cleans. So if we can keep that same cadence on the barbell movements for the clean and the snatch, that will pay off in the workout. Yeah,
for sure. I mean, Adele did a really good job of staying at the bar. You can see Schwen is really battling to try and stay at this bar. She actually looks like, when you look at her visually, at what's her face doing, is like she bent over. Is she like grimacing? She actually looks pretty calm still, and her movement still looks very clean. But I know she would much prefer a shorter, harder workout than a longer workout like this over 10 minutes. So she's still doing a good job. Adele's already moved back to the rower. Now, one thing I'd say for this second row, if you can't hold a pace above what you started your first row at, your first row is probably a little bit too hard. And I know Adele was struggling to get above 1,000 here in the second row. She eventually did, and she managed to settle in. But I would say maybe her first row might have been just a tad bit too hot because she didn't really have much to finish with at the end.
I agree. I think on the row, it's like you got to think about it as a 3-part row. In the first row, you want to keep it consistent throughout the 50 cals. Let's say, for example, between 950 and 1,000, for example, keep it consistent. And then the second row is a 2-part row where you maybe for the first 20, 30 cals, you should be at or higher than your first 50 cal row. And the last 20, 25, depending on how much you have to give, it's all out effort. And that's like a third part of the row.
Sure. I think Schwen, again, is just reminded me of something is when you do the wall walks, like Schwen has got to get on this row here. She needs to move a bit faster than that. But let's talk about the wall walk again. On the wall walk, don't take your time on the wall walk. Like the wall walk is one where there's like so much driven up tension. Your feet are pressing against the wall. Your hands are pressing into the floor. You're trying to lock your arms. You're trying to move back. We want to try and get that movement itself done as fast as we can and get back to the floor and rest. Like Adele did it in the last round, basically took her hands to her side like a fish. Schwen did it as well, just rested with her hands by her shoulders. But that's a position of zero tension. As soon as feet are up on the wall, we're having to work. So get your work done. Practice a fast rep, get to the floor and rest. A fast rep, get to the floor and rest. Again, a relentless pace is still relative to what you can hold and what you can do for the full 25 reps across. Now, in terms of like thinking about how this workout should feel, like obviously they are deep in the pain cave. Now you can see Adele is, her face has gone the same color as her top here, and she is pulling hard. Schwen still looks actually pretty much in control here. But yeah, we want to be feeling at this point, we're like a 9.5, 10 out of 10. Like we got to be emptying the tank. There is zero reason to be holding onto anything here, especially if you're going to get time capped, because rollover calories don't count. So when the time stops, that is your time done. So you got to really empty the tank, more so probably in the last 20 to 30 calories. The first probably 5 to 15 calories, you're going to be trying to get into your pace. And once you're there, you got to really push. So Adele's finished up now. But okay, so when we think about the start of this workout, you really got to be thinking like 6.5 to 7 out of 10. And it's got to be smooth. There's like transitions that got to be pushed, and we got to be effective and efficient with our movement. And then when you start to get into the deadlifts, it's going to start to move to like a 7, 7.5. You start to move into the cleans, it goes up a little bit again. The snatches, you're probably looking at like 8 to 8.5 out of 10. And then after that last walk, you're going 9+. But it should be building like that. And don't forget, even if you hold the same effort level, your RPE will go up. Right? So even if at the beginning you're going, okay, I'm going to do this many reps with, let's say your strategy of like 5 seconds per rep. Even though it's exactly the same in terms of time, your effort goes up.
Yeah.
So you feel like you're working harder, although you're doing exactly the same thing. So just bear that in mind. Almost start at a conservative pace, something that's maybe a little bit slower than what you would like to do. But again, in terms of redos in this workout, Karan, what are you thinking for redos here?
I think I could make the row hurt a bit more.
Yeah.
On the second row especially. Stay on the bar and control the bar from the top. I felt like my bar was bouncing about all over. I'm gonna go back, rewatch my video, average out my reps, and see how many seconds per rep on the bar for the clean and the snatch. So stay over the bar, don't step away from the bar, control the bar, don't let it bounce around too much. Keep a good cadence in the bar, and then manage shoulder fatigue. I think I did that quite well. Maybe the last round of wall walks, I maybe could have pushed that a bit more. And then the row, make it hurt sooner.
Yeah.
Versus the last 15, 20 counts, maybe the last 30 counts.
Yeah. I think another thing to think about then is also like, if you're a good hinger and a confident hinger, you could probably do this workout again with a day or two of rest.
Yeah.
This is not going to be like a back-to-back repeat one, because your hinging mechanics are going to be a little bit fried. So Schwen just finished up there. Well done. Yeah, good luck, kiss. Well done. But yeah, in terms of like repeating it, you probably want to give yourself at least 24 hours for this one, where it's like the 25.1 and 25.2 for a lot of people, they could probably back up a day straight after. So yeah, if you are thinking about repeating this, of course, always go back and watch your video. Don't just be like, I need to go faster. Because often just going faster is just going to send you into a hole earlier, especially in this sort of workout. Send you into a hole earlier, then you just can't maintain it. You're going to end up going worse in your second attempt for no apparent reason, just because you said, I need to be stronger, be less of a fill in the blank. So go back to your video. Think about how long each thing has taken you. Be objective with it. Be subjective with it. How did you feel at that time? Could you do more? Or did you feel like you're already like at your full potential with that movement? Like I said, be objective with it. How long did you take per rep? How long was the transitions between each movement? What were you doing? Etc. etc. Use the data to help fuel that, and then figure out where you can kind of make up time.
Yeah.
For a lot of it, because it's 25 reps of a wall walk, it might just be a skill thing. Maybe you haven't done that volume of wall walks and you got super sloppy there. Maybe do you need to take down the cadence and pace of deadlifts, power cleans, and snatches in order to execute your wall walks better, for example. But otherwise, 25.3, again, coming up next is our breakdown of each of the movements individually. Be smart, be efficient with your work, and good luck for 25.3. Thank you very much, Karan, Sanjeev.
Pleasure as always.
We will see you in 2026. 3.5 starts with the wall walks. Obviously, there's 25 of them to be done throughout this entire workout. So it's really important that even though they're in a small set of 5 every single time, that we are efficient, whether you're doing the scaled wall walk or the RX variation of the wall walk. Now, first thing, before we get into the actual variations of it, these wall walks are going to be one of the kind of make or break factors for if you're going to be doing the RX variation or the scaled variation. If you simply just cannot get yourself to that 10-inch line on the floor and it's just unsafe to do so, then we suggest going to the scaled variation of the workout, which needs a 55-inch line and a 10-inch line. The hands start over and then work behind the 55-inch line before they go back over. Now, of course, the movement standards is not something we're going to go through here today. Make sure you look at the official scorecard and movement standards on the CrossFit Games website. But what we will go over today on the wall walks is if you're doing the full wall walks, it's about being as efficient as possible. Just like you'd expect with the power clean and your power snatches, we've got to be efficient on the floor here as well. So when we go to this now, what we're thinking about is having our fingertips on these lines on the floor. Or thumbs or fingertips. Fingertips generally a little bit easier, gives you a bit less of a reach forward. Obviously, the chest is going to be on the floor and the feet are going to be on the floor. Now, as soon as we get our bum up off the floor and our arms are locked, that's a strong position we want to be in versus jumping up to the wall with a bent arm. Pressing out is not what we want to be doing here, especially with so many wall walks and our snatches later on. So when we're down on the floor, start with the fingers on the line. For the sake of this video, this is just a 55-inch line right now, so it looks a bit short on me. But hands must be in contact with the line. Now, as I said, the first thing we want to do is get ourselves up with momentum. So we don't just want to do a strict push-up here. You want to think about trying to pop yourself up off the floor, which will reduce the amount of need to press. Then we can jump our feet up to the wall, 1 foot at a time like that, or you can jump both feet up to the wall at once. But we're trying to get to a locked arm as soon as we can. As soon as we're in this position, we want to now start stepping back with the feet and hands at the same time, whether that's 1 step back or a smaller one. The idea is we're basically trying to reduce the amount of steps we need to get back to the wall before we then come back down to the floor, both feet onto the floor. Now, I know for me, I can get back with 4 steps and get back out with 3. I basically want to try and keep that as structured and as routine as I can throughout the 25 reps that we do today. Some of you might need to do more, some of you might be able to do less, but again, the more stacked we are with the arms, and the quicker we can get to that stacked position and keep the arms straight, the easier the wall walks are going to be. Another thing to think about is definitely using sweatbands to this workout. Most of you are going to be going over 10 minutes in this workout, so it's going to get sweaty. We don't want sweaty hands on a slick floor. Keep it nice and stiff on the floor so we're not slipping at all. Chalk marks on the floor, also a great thing to think about. If you know you have the same steps every single time, get a bit of dust in your hands to start. Get those footsteps, hand steps down on the floor so you can kind of just trace your steps every single time. Make it as easy and brainless for you as possible. Next thing is the cadence of the actual movement itself. We know the more we're upside down, the higher our heart rate is going to be. You can already hear me breathing as well. So you actually want to do the rep as fast as we can. And when you rest on the floor. Don't rest up in the inverted position. Don't try and take your time on the way down. Do the work fast, rest on the floor. Do the work fast, rest on the floor. So the next movement is going to be the 50 calorie row. So one thing we want to think about is, of course, there's a lot of transitions in this workout. Now, although it's only in and out of it twice, really we still want to be efficient there. So when I'm coming towards my row, of course, assuming you set up the damper and the foothold, as soon as you come into the rower, the foot straps should be loose enough that I can just kick my feet in straight away, grab the handle, start pulling, kick the other foot in, and then go. Now, what I'm doing right now, these are probably a bit too loose for these shoes right now, but if I had slightly thicker shoes, which I wear in a sec, then yes, these are going to be fine for me. But that gets the monitor moving straight away. Now, in terms of the actual movement itself, what we don't want is super short and sharp reps here and strokes. We want to see almost slightly longer, harder pulls on the rower, slightly slower stroke rate than what you might normally expect, especially on that first row. You still got a long way to go through this workout. On the last row, it's a full send for at least the last 20 or 25 calories, but get the work done before that. But of course, that first row, be smart with it, be smooth with it, don't go crazy. You got plenty of work to finish off. Long strokes and an easy setup to get straight in. Next movement is going to be the wall walks, then of course back into the deadlifts. Now when we're doing these deadlifts, if you want to wear a belt, wear a belt. Think about it, but don't go too tight or else it's going to restrict your breathing. But otherwise, hinging mechanics should still not suffer here. We should still use a solid hinge. Think about feet underneath the hips, toes slightly forward or ever so slightly out, totally fine. But we still want to see good bracing mechanics. Don't want to see people just rounding their back and just slamming the bar off the floor. This is another thing that's, of course, going to dictate whether athletes can go RX or scaled. If you simply cannot move the 225, 155 pound barbell, then it's not safe for you. Then move to the scaled variation of this workout. But if you can even slowly move through the RX variation, then we'd recommend doing that so long as you're safe with it. Now, the deadlift, of course, try and keep the arms long. What we don't want to do is jack up the arms and then be smoked for the wall walks, the row, the snatches, and the cleans later on. Try and relax the arms as best you can and use the legs to push the floor away. Now, singles are definitely an option here, as are touch and go sets. But what we don't want to do, especially early in the workout, is do a big touch and go set, have to back away from the barbell, and then come back into it, do a big touch and go set, because you end up just leaking time. And if you watch the announcement, Dallin Pepper against Jason Hopper, Hopper's doing bigger sets, whereas Dallin Pepper is doing shorter sets, but ends up moving faster through the work and remaining fresher by the end of the 25 reps. So break early, break smart, but also break fast as well. Break before you need to break on this. Breathe at the top. When you let go of the bar, breathe again. What we don't want to be doing is trying to breathe in the position of most tension as well. Breathe at the top quickly, touch and go. Breathe at the top, touch and go. Once you're feeling like you're building up a bit of fatigue, drop that bar, rinse and repeat. But again, There's still a long way to go in this workout. Don't smoke yourself early. Next movement after the wall walk again is going to be the 25 power cleans. 25 power cleans. Assuming you can move the deadlift, you should probably be able to move this power clean load. Now, one thing we want to think about, and the guys in the announcement did this really well, is as little movement as possible. So if we're starting to really throw the feet wide, or we're starting to jump back, or we're really having to pull hard underneath the barbell for the cleans, it's going to get tough. Similarly, I wouldn't recommend a muscle clean here because it just takes too much of a pull and too much extension. We'd rather just a shallow catching power clean. Now, again, we saw different variations. We had the touch and go variations, but we also had single variation. Again, for the majority of people, I would look towards singles. Try find plates which don't bounce so much. The more they stop dead on the floor, the better. Next thing would be catching it high versus catching it low with, again, as little footwork as possible. So the way that I'll do this, if I normally do a power clean, feet under hips and then land wider, I'm going to go somewhere in the middle and try cycle with as little footwork as possible. One thing that you saw Dal and Pepper do really well is chase the bar down to the floor without doing anything. So when I say chasing the bar down, as soon as he's hit his rep, he stood up, the bar went down, his hands went down. As soon as it stopped, he was doing his next rep. What we don't want to see is as the bar goes down, you're kind of like chasing it around the room. Again, you're just wasting time. You're wasting energy there. If you choose to do touch and go, make sure your mechanics are good here. But again, for the majority of people, I would not recommend touch and go reps. Again, if you are doing touch and go, keep the footwork to a minimum. Make sure you're still finishing the cleans while not having to overly pull hard with the arms here. Last movement is our snatch. Now with the snatches, we're coming towards the business end of a workout. You're going to have the snatches, wall walks, then row to finish off. So of course, with your snatches, your strategy cannot leave you feeling like you're dying going into those final 5 wall walks, because there's still a big opportunity to leak time or gain time in those last 5 wall walks and the 50-calorie row. You have the option, of course, of a muscle snatch, which a lot of people might use here, or a power snatch, similar to the power clean. Try and think about a shallow variation. You can use a full power snatch or a no contact power snatch here, whatever is more efficient. Again, pretty much everyone moved towards singles here because it kept them moving faster versus trying to hold on for bigger sets. Again, if you watch the Hopper versus Pepper and Sprague, Hopper's ending up having to try and find chalk because his grip's going versus just gripping on and hitting single reps nice and fast, chipping your way through. You have the option here, of course, to go slightly narrower. You go slightly narrower with your grip is meaning less hinging and less knee flexion. So it might be something to think about if your overhead position is comfortable. If you know you're tight overhead and you're having to press reps out, then maybe you go a little bit wider and your hinge suffers because of that, because of the shoulders. But 2 different things to think about, either narrower grip or a slightly wider grip. Touch and go versus a no touch and go. Again, majority of people look towards a no touch and go. Just doesn't make sense to blast through one big set and then start to leak time after that. And like we said, there's still plenty of work to be done after. Just remember, when you do it, make sure we're still looking for a clean lockout overhead versus catching here and then pressing out as you stand, which we see a lot of when people get fatigued. That is just going to kill you for the wall walks following afterwards.